with practical examples how to use the Vlookup function in Excel, the Hlookup function, the Xlookup function, and also the index and match function. We're going to see all those different functions and the difference between those functions in a practical way, step by step from scratch. If you want to skip for the practical example, just click in this minute of the video, because I want to show you first the difference between those functions. We're going to see the Vlookup function, the Hlookup, the Xlookup, and also the index match function. First of all, the Vlookup function, the V stands for vertical because it can sort in vertical tables. But we also have the Hlookup. The H stands for horizontal because it can sort in horizontal tables. Basically, the V and the Hlookup are the same function, however, with a different lookup direction. One is vertical, another one is horizontal. This is the only change. Now we can move on to a more advanced function, that is the Xlookup function. And we can do the same thing with the Xlookup function that the Vlookup and the Hlookup do. So if you need to make a vertical sort, you can use the Xlookup. If you need to do a horizontal sort, you can use the Xlookup too. But why should I use the Xlookup if I can use the H or the V? Because the V and the H have some limitations. And I'm going to show you in this practical example what are those limitations, those gaps that both of those functions have. But anyway, the Xlookup can replace the Vlookup and the Hlookup function, but be mindful because it's only present in newer Excel versions. So if you do not have the Xlookup function, you can of course use the index match function, because if you do not have the X, you can use the index match function. It's going to solve the same problems. It can replace again the Vlookup and the Hlookup function. And if you have a older Excel version, probably you have the index and the match function. But now let's go to the first practical example. To solve this problem, I need to bring back the cost for all the items that I have. I have here a sales report with a lot of different informations, such as the product name, the cost, the price, and the gross profit. The problem is I need to calculate the gross profit using the price minus the cost. But as you can see, there is nothing within the cost column. So I need to fill in with the correct data. And let's say I want to have the vitamin C cost. I can go back to the cost list and look up for the vitamin C and then return the cost of this specific item. But also, as you can see, it's going to take me a long time to complete this task. So how can I automate and save time? I can use the Vlookup function to help me. And remember, if I can use the Vlookup function, it's because I can also use the Xlookup function or the index match function. All those functions are going to work here. First of all, we're going to start with the cost list vertical, where I have all the items in a vertical displacement. So this list grow in a vertical way. If I want to input a new data here, the new item is going to be in the next row, so in a vertical way. And also the Vlookup function is going to look up in a vertical way. So it's going to look up for the product in a vertical, and whenever it's find the product, it's going to bring back a correspondent value. So this is how the Vlookup is going to work. So let's start with the first cost, equal sign Vlookup function, double click on to select. The lookup value is going to be the first item that I have, Jopa. Now we are in the second argument, that is the table array. The table array is here in the cost list vertical, and I want to use the column C, D, and E. But why is that? Because I need to first select the range where I have the items that I'm looking for. And I also need to select the range that I want to retrieve as result, or the cost. So this is why I basically select everything in between the product name and the cost, because those are the columns that I want to use. And then Jopa, let me click in the formula bar to make it easier to see. Now I need to select the column index number, and this column is the column that I want to bring back as result. And as I select the product, the brand, and the cost, the first column is the first one, of course, the second is the second one, and the third is the third one in this range. What is the column that I want to return as result? The number 3, the cost. So this is the number that I want to input in the column index number. So 3 and then comma. What is the range lookup? I want to use a exact match. Double click, 1, 2, close parentheses, and then enter. Okay, here we got the first result. Let me bring this function down to see if everything's correct. And of course, to bring a formula down, you just need to click at the bottom right corner of the cell. Click, hold, and drag like this. Okay, so let's make sure everything is correct. Let's take for an example, maybe protein powder, 77 and 7 cents. So let's go back here to the cost list and see if we can find the same price for the same product. Okay, yeah, it's perfectly correct. 77 and 7 cents. So this is how we can use the Vlookup function in Excel to help us with a practical problem. Now for the second problem, we're gonna use the Xlookup function. Because remember what I said, the Xlookup function can do everything that the Vlookup function does and beyond. So now I need to retrieve the shelf location for each one of the products that I have. The problem is, if I use the list to see the informations of the item, the product name, the location, the cost, and on, the location is to the left of my reference. But why is that a problem? Because remember, the Vlookup function in Excel can use a reference such as the product name and then retrieve everything to the right. There's no problem at all with this situation. So if I'm using the Vlookup function, I can indeed return the brand name and also the cost. No problem at all. But if I need to retrieve the location, let's say, I'm gonna have a problem because the Vlookup function cannot return something that is to the left of my reference. So this is why we can use the Xlookup function to help us, or we can also use the index match function. Remember that. But this time we're gonna use the Xlookup function over the Vlookup. Let's go back here, and to retrieve the shelf location, equal sign Xlookup function, double click to select the lookup value. I can first use the first item that I have, and then comma. The lookup array is going to be here in this list where I have the product names or the things that I'm looking for. Comma. Let's click in the formula bar to make it easier to see the arguments. The return array. Okay, the array, the range that I want to return is the location. So column B. That's it. Simple as that. So this is how we can use the Xlookup function. In my opinion, it's much easier to use than the Vlookup, for example. Enter. Okay, that's it. Let me bring this formula down, clicking at the bottom right corner of the cell, and we're done. So 2 problem solves using both the Vlookup function and the Xlookup function. And here we could also see what is the difference between the Vlookup function and the Xlookup function, or actually, why should I use the Xlookup function over the Vlookup function? Because as we saw, the Vlookup function can have some issues, depends on the location of the return array, if it's to the right or if it's to the left. So be mindful about it. Now we can move on to a next function, that is the Hlookup function and the Xlookup function. And this time we're gonna use a different list. As we saw before, and as we did use before, the cost list vertical, where the lists are being displaced in a vertical position. Now we're gonna use a different list. Actually, it's the same list, however, with a different displacement, where I have a horizontal displacement. And let's say I need to solve the same problem as before. Again, the cost and the shelf location. However, because we have a different list displacement, we need to use a different function, because the Vlookup cannot help us again here. However, the X can, and also the Hlookup can, and also the index match can help us. So basically, we're gonna take the product name as a reference and bring back the cost. No problem at all. We can use the Hlookup function. And then we need to bring back the location that is here above the product name. We maybe can use the Hlookup function, or maybe we should use the Xlookup function. We're gonna see. So let's go to the problems and solve this first task. Bring back the cost. So equal sign Hlookup function. Remember, I cannot use the V because the list is not in a vertical position, but is in a horizontal position. So Hlookup, double click, 1, 2. And as before, we have the same arguments that we have in the Vlookup function. So lookup value is the item, comma. The table array is the list that I'm going to use, more specific, the range. So in this case, I want to use the product name, the brand, and the cost, and then comma. Let's go to the formula bar, click within it to be better to see what we have as the arguments. The row index number is that row that I want to retrieve as result. So the product name is the first one, second one, and the cost is the third one. The third one is the column that I want to retrieve as result. So let me input the number 3 and then comma. The range lookup is going to be exactly match, 1, 2, and that's it. Enter. So here we have the first cost for the first product. If I click at the bottom right corner of the cell, I can hold and drag down, and maybe we have a problem. But why is that? Why I got here this arrow in Excel? Because think with me, whenever we drag a function down, as we can see, all the references, so let's say the item is going to be moved down. If I go to a function underneath, 1, 2, as we can see, instead of having the reference of the first item, now we have the reference of the item to the left. So the item, the reference, is going to follow along with the function. It's going to be moved down. And this is the problem, because if we go back here to the cost list, as I select the third, the fourth, and the fifth row, this is the first reference that I have for the first cell. But because I move all the functions down, I click, hold, and drag down, all those references is going to be moved down. So this is why we got a problem. And we can also check that this is true going to the first function here. As we can see, the reference of the cost list horizontal are the rows 3, 4, and 5, okay? From 3 up to 5. But if I go down to another cell, the reference is going to be changed, 4 and 6, and then 5 and 7, and on and on. So as we can see, the reference in this list is going to be moved down. And how can I fix this reference? To always use the row 3, 4, and 5 to fix this position, to not let Excel move this reference down. Because it's not right if I move the reference now. I need to stick with the same reference. Let me double click in the first function, 1, 2. And as we can see in the list, or we can actually go to the formula bar because it's easy. The cost list horizontal is about the spreadsheet that I'm using as reference. And the 3 and the 5 are the rows that I'm using. So I can select both of those numbers, 3 and 5, and then F4 key to lock this reference, F4 key to lock the reference. Now I can press enter. Okay, if I move this formula down, as we can see, now it's gonna work because the reference is gonna be the same and doesn't matter the row that I'm at with the function. Now let's bring everything down to complete this task. Okay, so this is how we can use the Hlookup function. And for the second problem, the shelf location again, we will not be able to use the Hlookup function because of a similar problem that we had before using the Vlookup function. As we want to retrieve the location and we are using the product name as a reference, as we can see, the location is above our reference. So the Hlookup function is not gonna work here because the Hlookup function, like the Vlookup function, can always bring something with one direction, let's say. And the Hlookup function specific can bring everything that is underneath our reference or everything that is down below our reference. So as the location is above our reference, we cannot use the Hlookup function. Now we can use the Xlookup function to solve this problem, or again, the index match function. Both of those functions are going to work here. Let's go back to the task and complete the shelf location. Equal sign, let's use for now the Xlookup function, and then we can move on to use the index match function to help us vertically and horizontally. So Xlookup first, 1, 2. Lookup value is going to be the item, and then comma. The lookup array is going to be here in the cost list. My lookup array is where I have the items, so the third row. And be mindful here, because again, we're going to need to fix this reference in the place. I can't let this reference be moved down. So I also going to use here the F4 key. And as we can see, I just added here the $ before the columns, the rows. And then let's click in the formula bar to make it easier to see, comma. The return array this time is going to be the second row where I have the location. So select the location, and again, F4 key to input the $ to lock the reference. And that's it. I can press enter and I'm done. So let me bring this formula down, clicking at the bottom right corner of the cell and hold and drag down like this. And we're done. So this is how we can use the Xlookup function in Excel over the Hlookup function. Now we can move on to the last function that we're going to see here. That is the index match function. And again, we have the same problem to solve, cost and the shelf location. But this time we're going to use the index match function for both vertical list and also to the horizontal list, because that way we can see all the possibilities, let's say. Let's go back here to the cell, and I want to start with the vertical list. So equal sign index function, index 1, 2 to select. The first thing that we need to input here is the array. The array that I want to use is within the cost list vertical. Basically, I need to select the range that I want to retrieve as a result. And this range is the cost, so column E. Comma. Let's click in the formula bar to make it easier. And now the index function is asking me about the row number. What is the row number that I want to retrieve? Be mindful here, because the row number can change. Do you agree with me? One time I can use the second row to retrieve this cost right here. Another time maybe I can use the row number 10 to retrieve this value, and on and on. So the row number can change, depends on the item that I'm looking for. And because of that, I cannot manually input a number right here. I need to make it dynamic, and I can use to help me the match function. So yeah, I want to append another function within the index, and this is what we call index match function. Double click 1, 2 to select. Now what is the lookup value that I need to use? The lookup value is within the index match here. Is the item that I have to the left, comma. The lookup array, of course, is in the cost list vertical, and is the items, the column of the items, column C. And then, comma, I want to use a exact match, 1, 2, and then close parentheses, and close parentheses again, and press enter. Here we got the correct result. If I bring this formula down, it's gonna work perfectly. However, I now gonna do something different. Let's just keep with the first cell, because I want to show how to use the index match in a horizontal list. So let's go to the cell underneath, equal sign, index function, 1, 2 to select. The array this time is gonna be in this list right here, and I want to select first the result, so the cost. And remember, be mindful, we need to fix this reference using the F4 key. Comma. Now, what is the row number that I want to use? Row number. I will not use any row number, because the only row that I want to use is the row number 5, the cost. So I don't need to specify a row number, but I can skip this option and comma. Now, okay, I want to use a column number, because I can use the second column to return this value, or I can use maybe the column 6 to return this value, and on and on. So now this time, what can change here is the column number. It can be whether the second one, the third, the fourth, the sixth, I don't know. So we need to input here a match function to help us. Match, double click, 1, 2. Let me click in the formula bar to make it easier. The lookup value is the item that I have. So vitamin C, Jopa, lookup array is going to be in the cost list horizontal and is the items that I'm looking for or the products. And again, F for key to lock this reference. And then Jopa. The match type is going to be a exact match, 1, 2, close parentheses again, and then enter. Okay, here we got the correct result. And if I bring this formula down, we can see everything is working. Now we can move on to the last problem, that is the shelf location. And again, we're going to use the cost list vertical and also the cost list horizontal. But this time, remember that we did try to use the Vlookup function and also the Hlookup function, but both of those functions did not work because, as we can see, the reference, now the return array is to the left of our reference, and in the horizontal list, the return array is above our reference. So we cannot use here the Vlookup function or the Xlookup function. However, the index match function, like the Vlookup function, both are gonna work. Equal sign, index function, want you to select. First of all, the array. The array is the column where I want to bring it back as result. So the column B, and then Jopa. Let's click in the formula bar, okay. What is the row number that I want to use? Again, I don't know. It can be whether the first one, the second one, the third, the row number 10th. So it can change. Because of that, I can use the match function to help me return the row number. 1, 2. The lookup value is here in the list where I have the first item to the left, comma. Now the lookup array is the range where I have the items, column C, and then comma. The match type is going to be exact match, 1, 2, close parentheses again, and then enter. Okay, here we got the shelf location position for the first item. And if I bring this formula down, we're done. This is how we can use the index match function over the Xlookup. Now let's use the index function again for the last time to help us retrieve a value using a horizontal list. So the index, equal sign index, the array that I'm going to use is within the cost list horizontal, and is the range that I want to retrieve as result. In this case, is the second row, and be mindful, use the F4 key to lock the reference. Let me click in the formula bar, comma. What is the row number that I want to use? There is no row number because there is just one row that I'm using. So let's skip this argument, comma. The column number, okay, now it's something that I want to use. It can be whether the second one, or sorry, it's not the cost that I want to retrieve, but the location. So it can be the second one, the fourth, the fifth, and on. Because it can change, I can use the match function to help me with that. Double click, 1, 2. The lookup value, let's go back to the sales report. It's going to be the vitamin C, and then comma. The lookup array, again, here in this list, is going to be where I have the product, and F4 key to lock this reference, comma. The match type is going to be 0, 1, 2, close parentheses again, and we're done. Hit enter, and yeah, that's it. Let me bring this formula down, and this is how we can use the index match function over the Xlookup function, if you wish. And this is how we can use all those functions in Excel: Vlookup, Hlookup, Xlookup, and also index and match function. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and if you have any questions or any suggestions to the next videos, let me know, comment down below, and I see you tomorrow, as every day has a new video. I see you there.